And we are live. Welcome to the Condor DM show. Tonight I am covering RuneQuest. Oh, we're in casual time. First 10 minutes is always give time for people to roll in, get comfortable. It's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a great night. If you like RuneQuest, I'm going to cover everything. Like every detail. When I say everything, like a good overview, but I do have common questions at the end that can have to do with game rules, specifics. I don't go through the books and teach you every detail, but the overview will give you enough information and knowledge to really understand what it is you're walking into. The idea is to sell these games to you. So nothing here is going to be false. If I tell you what the game is going to be like, it won't matter when you go read the rules. It will be like what I'm describing. Oh, country of RuneQuest, we'll call it Glorantha. That's the real place because the whole game is built off on the setting, right? And I got to tell people, I don't care if anybody's talking tonight on other streams about drama. Just don't mention it here. It's about the game. I want to focus on RuneQuest. I don't want to ruin my coverage of RuneQuest by having somebody even bring that crap up to me. It bores me. I want to cover the game and have a good night. A really good night. It's going to be fun. Now, there was some depressing news. Glenn, hey, what's up there, Craig Chambers? Glenn Hallstrom, I've watched for years on YouTube covering modules and other games. And I seen an image of him today because he's in the hospital having issues. And it really hit me really hard, right? Because I've been through that with family recently, like in the last 8 years, lost a few family members, going through the hospital stuff, seeing him in bad shape. And I was like, okay, that guy deserves some respect. He's put a lot of years in on YouTube here covering modules and games. And I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure more people know about his issue. So, and then also advertise his channel, right? Greetings. Yes, from Wales. RuneQuest is going to be a really good night. Now, when I say it's worth mentioning, that the added stuff I've added on now to the streams, just to get them extended, it's just to go into some of the rules, really clarify some things so people are quite happy, right? RuneQuest is an awesome game. It's less about just pure fantasy and more about myth. That's the focus. It's a bit of a D100 game. You don't really level up. You improve what you actually do in the game. I don't want to go too far into it, but if you don't do something, you can't really spend points to. You can't really upgrade that thing, right? You got to do the thing to upgrade the thing. There's no levels, and there's no classes. Now that's true for a lot of games I've covered recently. No classes. No. This one is a little bit less about roles. It's more about how you hook yourself up to a cult. It's cult related, but I guess not all bad cults, right? Culture and cult. I don't want to mention too much because then I'm just going to start giving stuff away. I don't want to do that. There is what I would call common magic. So a lot, just like Earth Dawn, just about everybody can use magic, but use a common form of it. But then there's spiritual divine magic, which is more rare and more stronger. Yeah. You want to know what? If you get time, go check it out. He was fabulous. I spent years really just hearing all his pitches, and he would just find a new module or a new game, and he really old school mindset type of guy, really laid back, and would just tell you really in a nice way about the module or game, really go through the details that I want to hear. Because look, dude, I don't need you to teach me how to run it. You're selling me something, but don't sell it to me like some corporate commercial. Glenn was really good at that. It's just giving you what I call the rundown on a module or a game. And I spent years watching the guy on YouTube. So again, when I seen that image of him today that one of his loved ones put out there, it was just I was floored. I felt so bad, right? I hope he's just okay. He's going to deal with whatever he's dealing with. And we'll see him back here doing streams. And I guess he's on the Thanko Hammers podcast. And I think it's a month ago he did one of his videos on his channel. But he's been great. I've been watching him for years. Really old school. He's not high production. He's just like me, stands up in front of the camera and talks to you. But, when he's going on his own, the guy can be smooth. Really nice to listen to, right? It's just, look, you can't watch somebody for that many years and not, even if you don't know them personally, like slightly connect. And then when you see him, I seen him going through what my family has gone through recently in the last 8 years. So it's like, it's horrible seeing it, right? If there was ever a potential D&D killer, yeah, a lot of people said that. I don't want to confuse people. A lot of people are like asking me that weren't TTRPG people. You're covering RuneQuest? You mean the game? I'm like, yeah, the tabletop pen and paper game. Like, oh, not the PC game. I'm like, no, not the PC game. And the PC game for RuneQuest is quite popular, right? And it's like, no, I'm covering the tabletop role-playing game. But yeah, it was actually, the potential was there, Craig. But like many things, the majority, and it's not even that I would say here's what happened. RuneQuest wasn't just competing with D&D. It's competing with a bunch of games that were competing with D&D. That's the problem. RuneQuest might have been able to take the majority, but you got Plenium, you got the vampire games, you got all this stuff coming out. And so RuneQuest came out, and it's one of many games that were, actually, I think a lot of games were great competitors against D&D, but you're spreading out an audience, right? You're spreading it out, and D&D was already there. So for a good period of time, they're still keeping the majority, but it's not the same large majority, but it's still, they got their hooks in a lot of people. And then when people start leaving, it's all these games that are competing with D&D. If you might have had one or two games competing with D&D, a game like RuneQuest could probably have taken the crowd. But when you have too many games, it's the opinion part. Too many games means you're going to split up like that other, the other crowd of people that are leaving D&D and going to other games. In a few minutes, we're going to start into it. Now, let me just go over. So if you're new, I was talking to Samwise Tim. He's promoting the stream, so it might be a few people that are coming in that aren't normally here. This is an overview, rundown, really trying to hype the game. I do it in parts. So it will be influences and birth of the game, and then how to run it, then character creation, then setting, and then what I think it does better than other RPGs, then criticism and defense, and then a section called worth mentioning. You might want to call it like common questions. I needed to add something to these streams, so the way I did was I just went out and started searching common questions. It's weird when I started researching these games last year to do them up. Like I've already ran them and everything, but I discover how much I forgot because I ran like 50 games. So I'm like, going, man, I'm getting ready to do the stream up, and I'm like going through the books, going, I've forgotten so much of this that even though I did run all these, there's a lot of games where people would ask me questions before I started getting the streams ready last year. I would have said to myself, man, I'd probably come across like somebody who doesn't know enough to have ran it. And in a way, I was like refreshing. It was like, wow, I'm going, I forgot about this. Oh, I forgot about this. Man, if somebody asked me, even though I did run the game, I knew it all at the time. There's so much I forgot about a lot of games, right? So a refresher course, common questions. The common questions were good enough for me that I think they'd be good for another person who knows RuneQuest to get a reminder on some of this stuff, right? Yeah, Call of Cthulhu is another one. You're right, Craig. That's part of that splitting the potential audience that could have competed with D&D, but it's every time something comes out to compete with D&D, it would have to then overwhelmingly become popular in comparison to Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu probably was the closest thing in certain parts of the world that definitely was popular enough to start taking the crowd. It wasn't as popular in the West, right? So casual time is pretty much over in a few seconds here. I don't smoke while I do these things. I have a little smoke opening up, folks. I'm a smoker. Sorry about that. Always first 10 minutes is the roll in time. Give people time to get here before I start into these things. So we start off with some fluff, which is going to be influence and birth of the game. Then we'll get into the meat. But here we are. Okay. RuneQuest, influences, and birth. Core influence, mythology over fantasy tropes. Most early RPGs followed token-style fantasy. RuneQuest didn't. It pulled heavily from real-world mythologies like Greek and Norse, Bronze Age cultures, ritual, religion, and myth as daily life. This isn't fantasy with myths. It's a mythological world you live inside. The big influence, the setting, Glorantha. This is the heart of RuneQuest. Setting, Glorantha, created by Greg Stafford, which we've talked about before, Mr. Greg. Glorantha isn't just a backdrop, it's a fully realized mythic world where gods, spirits, and reality are intertwined, where belief shapes experience. The setting came first. The system was built to support it. Usually not the way any of these games are made. But yeah, this one where they came up with the setting for RuneQuest and then said, we're going to build our game towards. It's again where instead of the mechanics being the focus, the mechanics become something used to really up something else that is being focused on. Design reaction, moving away from Dungeons and Dragons. RuneQuest was a direct reaction to early D&D style. Design, instead of classes, levels, abstract combat, it introduced skill-based system, percentile, D100. No classes, as many games don't have them. Characters defined by skills and culture. Hit locations, arms, legs, torso, head. The goal, make the world feel grounded, more grounded, even inside a mythic setting. The system influence, simulation meets myth. Simulation is always old school, right? Simulate everything. RuneQuest blends two things that usually don't mix. Simulation style mechanics, mythic and religious storytelling. This creates combat that feels dangerous and real, a world that feels symbolic and spiritual. That contrast is intentional and defining. The birth of the game, released in 1978. Publisher, Chaosium. Key figures, Greg Stafford, creator of Glorantha. Steve Perrin, primary system designer. Stafford built the world, Perrin built the system to make it playable. The system legacy, birth of BRP. RuneQuest mechanics became the foundation for, this is BRP, basic role-playing, which later powered Call of Cthulhu and other Chaosium games. RuneQuest didn't just make a system, it created a design lineage. The big innovation, RuneQuest changed expectations in RPG design. Characters are defined by what they can do, not what class they are. Combat has real consequences. That's true for many games. Religion and myth are active systems, not background flavor. It proved you could have deep world building plus grounded mechanics in the same game. RuneQuest didn't try to copy D&D. It tried to build a world where myth and reality operate by rules you can actually play. Final takeaway from this part. Built on mythology, not token fantasy. Powered by Glorantha, the setting, one of the deepest settings in RPGs. Designed as a reaction to early RPG limitation. Gave birth to basic role-playing, influencing multiple major games. It stands out because the world came first and everything else was built to serve it. So fluff, we cover fluff up front. That's fluff. Now we dive into the good stuff. RuneQuest, how to run RuneQuest as I did, and where game masters can get it wrong. Run the world as myth, not just as a setting. RuneQuest isn't just a place, it's a mythic reality built by Greg Stafford. Gods are real, myths are repeatable. Belief shapes outcome. Run it like this. Religion is part of daily life. So when you run it, you want to run it like religion is really part of the system, how people live. Rituals matter. Myth influences events. If the world feels like a generic fantasy, you're missing the point. Treat combat as dangerous, because it is. RuneQuest combat is not heroic fantasy combat. Hit locations matter. Limbs can be disabled, for real. A single bad roll can change everything. Run it like this. Make players think before fighting. Emphasize consequences. Let danger feel real. If combat feels safe, you're running it wrong. Focus on skills, not roles. RuneQuest has no classes. Characters are defined by skills, shaped by culture and experience. Run it like this. Let players solve problems in different ways. Reward skill use and growth. Avoid forcing party roles. Characters are what they do, not what they are labeled. So it's like, oh, here's the thief in D&D. That's not how this is. It's more about what you're willing to do really is going to be the part you play in the group and in the game. So it's really on the player to be active in the game, to take up anything they can actually put something forward to, their skills, their thoughts, whatever. So you're labeled. It's not like D&D where you're the thief and you're expected to deal with the door, right? It's just not like that. Let the world react to the characters. This is a social world. Tribes, cults, communities, everything matters. Run it like this. NPCs remember actions. Reputation matters. Culture shapes interactions. This is not a static world. It responds. Use magic as culture, not just power. Magic in RuneQuest is tied to cults, spirits, religion. It's not just pick spells from a list. Run it like this. Magic comes from belief and membership. Cults matter mechanically and socially. Magic reinforces identity. If magic feels generic, you're losing depth. Where GMs get it wrong. Running it like D&D, biggest mistake. Expecting heroic balance, treating combat as primary gameplay, ignoring culture and myth. RuneQuest is not about dungeon crawling. It's about living in a mythic world. So all that stuff, biggest mistake. Expecting heroic balance, treating combat as primary gameplay, ignoring culture and myth. This is not D&D. You don't do those things. Ignoring Glorantha or using it poorly. Mistake. Dumping lore on players, as we talked about with Earthdawn. You don't want to dump. Or ignoring it entirely. Correct approach, really? Introduce through play. You hear a lot about the same thing with Earthdawn. Introduce it through the experience, through play. Let players experience it naturally. That's the balance right there. Glorantha should feel lived, not lectured. Making combat the default solution. If every problem is solved by fighting, characters die fast. Game becomes frustrating, so don't do that. Not embracing consequences. These are things you shouldn't be doing. RuneQuest is built on lasting injuries, reputation changes, social consequences. If you ignore that, the system loses weight. Decisions stop mattering. Treating skills as static numbers. That's a mistake. Skills as fixed stats. Reality skill grow through use. They reflect character history. Advancement should feel earned and organic. RuneQuest works when the world feels real, the myths feel alive, and every decision has consequences. If you run RuneQuest like a heroic adventure, it feels punishing. If you run it like a living myth, it becomes unforgettable. Final takeaway from this area. Embrace myth and culture. Treat combat as dangerous. Let skills define characters. Make the world react. Use magic as identity. Do that, and RuneQuest delivers something rare, a game where myth, culture, and mechanics all matter equally. I hope I'm not speeding through this stuff, but it does feel like, because a lot of this stuff, even for running it, is really to the point. And I've talked about a lot of these things, so it's like, okay. New area, character creation. And it's a weird area because this is really not, it's like many games. This is not about picking classes because so many games try to separate themselves from Dungeons and Dragons. So they would look at what D&D is doing and go, well, like, that's not what we're doing with our thing. It's a way to separate. So you'll notice a lot of old school games, it's comparing themselves to this or wanting to be different from this, right? Dungeons and Dragons. You can't help it. It owns so much of the market that you're always trying to get your part as something separate. Why do it the same? You're going to lose. That was the idea, right? So character creation. You don't pick a class. You build a person. This is the first shock for most players. There are no classes. Instead, your character is a member of a culture, a person with a background, someone with skills shaped by life. You're not choosing a role. You're defining a life path. Culture comes first, and it shapes everything. Your culture determines starting skills, beliefs, social role, knowledge of the world. In Glorantha, culture is not flavor, it's structure. A tribal warrior, a city initiate, and a nomad are completely different characters from the start. Skills define you, not levels. RuneQuest runs on a percentile D100 skill system. Sword skill, example 65%. You succeed 65% of the time. That's what it's saying, right? Stealth, crafting, riding, etc. Key differences. You improve skills through use and experience, not by leveling up. So that's important. Like, if you don't use a skill, you can't improve it. So you actually have to, in gameplay, actually use skills to improve them because you don't level up in the game. So it's more about improving what you're actually actively doing in gameplay. I hope the connection's okay. I see a little warning there. This makes progression feel organic, personal, tied to what you actually do, as I said, in play. So really, to improve your character, it's through what you do. There is no leveling. Cults and religion are part of your build. This is huge and very different. You don't just pick abilities. You join a cult. Okay, Black, that's good. I like hearing that. Brutally okay. So you join a cult, a religious path, a mythic tradition that gives you magic, social identity, and obligations. Your powers come from who you serve and believe in. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that, man. Always when I get the warning, it gets me a little worried. So thank you very much for letting me know we're good. Combat capability isn't guaranteed. In many RPGs, every character is combat ready. In RuneQuest, you might be a farmer with a spear, or a trained warrior, or something in between. There is no assumption of equal combat ability. Why it feels different. Not everyone is built to fight, and that's intentional. Remember, it's not about combat. It's not that. That's not what this is about. Okay. Attributes support. They don't define the character, like say in D&D. You still have attributes, strength, dexterity, intelligence, etc. But they feed into skills. They don't dominate your identity, who the character is. Skills and choices matter more than raw stats in RuneQuest. Where players get it wrong, looking for the best build, mistake. Trying to optimize like a class-based system, problem. RuneQuest doesn't reward that mindset. It rewards coherent characters, not min-maxing. Number 2 mistake, ignoring culture. Mistake, treating culture as flavor text. Reality, culture defines your starting point and worldview. Ignored, and your character feels hollow. Expecting equal power. Mistake. Assuming all characters are equally strong. Reality, characters are uneven by design. Balance comes from role and story, not stats. Treating skills like static numbers. Mistake. Viewing skills as fixed. Reality, skills evolve based on play. Your character becomes what they do repeatedly. That's really important in this game. It's not like the leveling system of other games. How you improve is based on you doing stuff in the game. What you do is going to help your character improve in these different areas. If you don't use a skill, that skill doesn't get improved throughout your time. RuneQuest character creation works because you're not building a role, you're building a person shaped by culture, belief, and experience. Experience actually doing stuff and experience from background. In RuneQuest, your character isn't defined by class. They're defined by how they live in the world. That means how you play the game. So it's how you actually play the game is how you're going to experience. You're not a thief. You're not this. You don't live by label. So you really got to be a more clever player. And then what you actually do is the areas that you can improve your character in. Final takeaway. No classes, full flexibility. Culture defines starting identity. Skill drives everything. Skills drive everything. Religion shapes power and role. Progression is organic through what you do. That's why it feels different. It treats characters like people first, adventurers second. Okay. On to setting. This is one of the more important parts because, well, every part's going to be important real, like in real, but Glorantha is the thing the whole game is built towards making work. This thing was built before anything I've told you about so far. Glorantha, the setting. The setting, Glorantha, myth made real. I've heard that so many times in my research for this game. That's what they believe. Myth made real. The core setting is, as I said, Glorantha. You already know it's created by Greg Stafford. This is not generic fantasy. It's Bronze Age inspired, deeply mythological, built on religion, culture, and belief. You're not exploring a world, you're living inside a myth system. The core idea, myth equals reality. This is the defining concept. In Glorantha, gods are real. Myths actually happen and can be reenacted. That means reality is shaped by belief. Rituals can change outcomes. Heroes can literally walk mythic paths. This is not background flavor. This is how the world functions. This is the type of poetic stuff they put to this because they really believe this stuff. Like, it's deeply, deeply important to RuneQuest people. This is what they want people to really take away from these things. Cults, the backbone of society. Everything revolves around cults. Religious organizations tied to specific gods. They define magic, social role, community identity. Examples: storm god worshippers, earth priestesses, warrior cults. Your character's religion is not optional, it's central. Cultures and religion. This is where play happens. Key areas often used: Sarder, tribal, rebellious, hero-focused; Prax, nomadic, survival culture; Lunar Empire, powerful, organized, expansionist. These aren't just locations, they're ideological conflicts. The central conflict, I do have company this week. This week, sorry about that. The central conflict, if you hear any noise in the background, the central conflict, freedom versus empire. One of the main tensions, local tribes and traditions versus the expanding lunar empire. This gives you war, politics, cultural clashes. It's not just adventuring, it's being part of a larger struggle. Magic is everywhere, but structured. Magic isn't rare, it's part of daily life. structured through cults and spirits, available in different forms: spirit magic, divine magic, ruin magic. Everyone interacts with magic, but not in the same way. Why this setting, Glorantha, hits different. This is the key point. So I'm going to really stick on this. The setting is not a backdrop, it's the system's foundation. Skills reflect culture, magic reflects beliefs, conflicts reflect myth and history. You can't separate RuneQuest from Glorantha without losing what makes it work. The trade-off: strength, deep, cohesive world. Everything connects. Strong identity. Weakness, heavy buy-in required, can overwhelm new players, harder to jump in. So Glorantha is really deep. It's cohesive. It's really deep, has a lot of depth, but it can take, you got to get players to really want to buy into the world. It's a lot easier doing the video game RuneQuest than it is the tabletop role-playing game when it comes to buy-in and experience. RuneQuest doesn't give you a setting, it drops you into a world where myth, culture, and reality are the same thing. Final takeaway from this section: yes, it absolutely has a setting, and it's one of the most important parts of the game. RuneQuest without Glorantha is just a system. RuneQuest with Glorantha is a completely different experience. Okay, so what does RuneQuest, the tabletop role-playing game, do better than other games? Do better than most other fantasy RPGs? It treats culture as mechanics, not flavor. Most fantasy RPGs, culture equal background text. RuneQuest, culture determines skills. Like literally, the culture you're choosing is how you're making your character when you're picking skills, what your worldview is going to be, what your social role is. So literally affects your character, what culture you're really focused on. So culture determines skills, worldview, social role, because there is no classes. Your character doesn't just have a background, they are shaped by it from the start. Very important, that part, because it's like you might think, well, it's just a culture. No, this culture thing is how you build your character, because there's no class. So this is what gives you options. Characters feel like real people. Most RPGs start as heroes. RuneQuest, you start as a person. True for a lot of games. You become something more over time. That's growth. Growth feels earned and not assumed. And that's because you don't just get a new level and you get so many things bumped up. You only get improved as you're going forward by what you're doing. If you don't use a skill in the game, the skill doesn't improve. There's no levels. That's really important. So you really got to get in and earn your improvement in the game by what you're doing. So if you avoid using one of your skills for a long time, that skill just stays where it is. It does not improve. The ones you do use, improve. Combat has weight and consequence. Most systems, combat is routine. RuneQuest, combat is dangerous. Injuries matter. That's body part location and damage. Decisions carry risk. Fighting means something, and players feel it just because you can get it's body locations when you're doing combat, right? If you get hit in the head or the torso, you can die. But I'll talk more in detail later. But if you get hit like in the arm, like say you got down to 0 hit points in the arm, there goes your arm. 0 hit points on your leg, you're on the ground. Or at least you're on one leg. And another little detail is armor does not defend you against hits. You might be like, I got great armor. I'll be like, yeah, but it only has to do with absorbing damage. So you might take a lot less damage if you got really good armor. But the contact part of the attack, it doesn't stop that. It doesn't slow that down at all, right? So that it does not defend against the actual contact of the attack. And unlike other games, this game is you're rolling and the defender rolls against your roll. And it's D100 and you're rolling under your weapon. But yeah. So yeah, if you get 0 down to your head or your torso, especially your head, but even your torso, it can kill you. Religion actually matters. Most fantasy RPGs, religion is optional. RuneQuest, religion is power source, identity, and social structure. Your god isn't flavor, it defines your role in the world because the gods are real. So here it just doesn't, it has no shame about, like, there's no atheism. Gods are real. Like, it's not like, oh, have faith in your god. No. You mean that guy over there? You don't need faith. You get what I'm saying? It's not just that simple, but it's, gods are so real, so seen, so accepted that the idea of non-belief just doesn't exist really. Skills drive the game, not classes, as I've already went over. Most RPGs, classes define what you can do. RuneQuest, skills define everything. Your character becomes what they actually practice and use. From the player end for this game, it's awesome. Like, because again, I said the comparison to D&D is this. In D&D, you're a thief. Like, you say you're a thief, so you know your role. You pick the lock. You do all this, right? And in this one, it's like, well, you got skills, but what are you doing as a player? So I'll give you a situation challenge, and nobody can say, oh, that's my character's job. No, it's how clever of a player. This is player skill. This is a player skill game. This is straight player skill. Like, you got skills, but really, what can you think of, and what skills do you have? And can you step up and take care of it, regardless to who else you're playing with, what the other characters can do? So the more quiet and the more held back you are, first off, it doesn't improve your character because there's no classes. You improve through your actions. Again, if you don't use a skill, it doesn't improve because there's no levels. You only get to improve the numbers through uses. So this is a powerful player skill game, pure player skill. The old D&D guys that talk about player skill being more important than skills. Here's a weird game with skills, but player skill becomes the most important skill in the entire game, even with skills. How ironic, eh? And it's because you got no label for what you're supposed to do. But I think playing this game is awesome. I loved it when I played it. I really did, because I didn't have to worry about, like, well, I guess I'll let him deal with it. No, just if I could think of something, hey, how about we try this? And so any challenge put in front of you, no matter who you're playing, you can go, I'll take a shot at that thing. Myth and mechanics are connected. Most games, myth equals story. RuneQuest, myth equals system. You can reenact myths, interact with gods. Remember I said they're real? You can interact with gods, influence reality through belief, because belief is not like faith. The world doesn't just have lore, it runs on the lore. Like, you have lore, but it really is functioning based on it. So the lore you learn that's how the world is actually working. Progression feels natural. Most RPGs level up, instant jump. RuneQuest, skills improve, as I said, through youth. Growth reflects experience, the experience you have in the actual gameplay. It feels like living and learning, not leveling. Oh, wow, that's really important for the experience you have in a RuneQuest game. You really feel like you are improving through trying to figure out what to do. Oh, you use this skill? Guess what, dude? Yeah, well, you get to improve that skill. For first-time players, it's amazing when they find out how this all actually really works. Like, you mean, and then when they have the eureka, they're like, man, I'm going to use that skill. I'm going to start using all my skills. Thank you, Black Rose. But that really is, you get excited because you're like realizing, I mean, I get rewarded for what I do. Like, I could, like, you know, how many games just give you a level and it's, okay, you did some stuff, but that special action, that unique effort you made, that's not really rewarded. And RuneQuest, that's exactly how you're rewarded. So your clever play is actually appreciated. Your ideas as a player and your skill is actually rewarded properly. Not many games did that right or even tried to do that. This game is one where you feel like, man, if I try, how many games have you been out there? Like, if I try extra, I'm not going to get much out of this. I will get my thing. In this game, when you try extra, the game says, I noticed. Here you go. Now you get improved based on what you do. So to me, it's really important. It knows exactly what it is. This is the biggest strength. RuneQuest doesn't try to be easy, be balanced, or be generic. It commits to a grounded, mythic, culturally driven world with real consequences. That clearly is why it still stands out. Most fantasy RPGs give you a system and a world. RuneQuest gives you a world where the system is built to reflect how the world actually works. And this is a game that loves the people that play it. It really does. Final takeaway from this part, RuneQuest stands out because culture matters, religion matters, actions matter, growth feels real because it's what you do, not just, oh, you did the generic stuff to get up. No, what you did. Your extra effort is what gets paid off. That's why people who connect with it don't just like it, they stick with RuneQuest. This is what makes it a game that could have, as Craig said earlier, could have competed with D&D. You can see the potential for the player base. Because I don't know how many D&D games were, I had players at the end of it go, man, because they played a lot of games where DMs would not reward extra effort. And I would personally give it, but it's not like D&D is just pushing me towards that. I would just notice it and appreciate your play and give you extra shit. But RuneQuest says, no, the extra you do, it doesn't get ignored. That's what we're looking for. And so we reward it. So you keep playing with that same kind of passion when you come to the game, right? And it just tells you that it's worth your time to make the effort. A lot of games you see players get dull because they made an extra effort. The DM doesn't reward it. They just get level up with everyone else. And they're like, yeah, okay. It's just, then it's how hard are they going to try the next time? This game is just all about rewarding that extra. Boom. It's not the easiest game. It does demand more from players because you're not just leveling up. It can feel harsh at first when you're getting to know it, because it can be that way. But if you lean into it, you get one of the most grounded, immersive, and meaningful fantasy experiences ever made. You really do. RuneQuest is not just a special video game. There's a reason the video game came out into the market and already had people jumping to it, because the tabletop role-playing game did have a ton of success, and there's a reason. It's a game that cares about its players, even if the game is very challenging. It's like, I love you, but it's not easy. But given the extra effort we demand from you, we make sure you're rewarded for what you're doing. So that effort is not just throwaway like other games. Okay, now we're into a more part that you guys know before we get to the stuff I call worth mentioning, the common questions. Criticism versus defense. The setting, this criticism one, the setting is too dense. Glorantha is deep, complex, and unfamiliar. New players don't know where to start. Feels like homework before play. People that say that, I think sometimes they don't understand the tabletop role-playing game hobby. It's like, I don't mind Tunnels and Trolls, but I don't think the hobby was meant to be for people that just want to jump in and play a game. Like, go play a video game. That's not what this is, right? But hey, that's an opinion I'm throwing in there. Keep to the facts. Defense, that depth creates a living, believable world. You don't need everything. Start local. One tribe, one region. So, in reality, just to make it easier on players, I could tell you there's lots about Glorantha. But as a game master, I could make it that, guess what, dude? We're only going to play in this area. Here's the one or two choices, so you can build your character through these religions, and you get to know it through this run, and maybe we'll play another area. But as we go through the game, you can meet people that know more about the world, that teach your character. And through what you learn through your character, you learn more, and you learn more. And you can gradually learn the world without needing to have lore dumps on you, right? You don't just need, here's a book, go read. You don't need that. The game master is required to learn more, but we're talking about from the player point of view here. Discovery through play is the intended experience. So RuneQuest does hint that this is how players should be learning about Glorantha, because they know it's overwhelming. It's only overwhelming if you try to learn it all at once. Now, it even teaches the game master that the game master really doesn't have to learn every detail to run the game. You do got to learn a bit more than players, but you don't got to learn everything. So even the game master is not like, don't worry, potential game masters out there for the old RuneQuest game. You don't need, learn about an area, but then learn about how the game works. That's really your main aim, how the game works and the area that you're going to run your game in. It's criticism number 2. It's too tied to its setting. Hard to separate rules from Glorantha. Not flexible for homebrew worlds. True. Feels restrictive. The defense, that tight integration is the whole point. So it's not made for your homebrew world. It's just not. Mechanics reinforce myth, culture, and religion. Avoids generic fantasy completely. It trades flexibility for the identity and the cohesion. So it's saying, yes, okay, all right, it's not made for you to make a homebrewed world for it, but it's for what it is made. If you want to have the experience, it just trades that off for this, but it's cohesion. It's that's where you find what you're looking for identity. Okay, criticism number 3. Combat is too lethal. Characters can be crippled or killed quickly. Crippled, 0 hit points on the leg, boom, you're down. 0 hit points on your arm, because it's all about like body part and hit locations. Like you can get crippled through combat, not just killed. You can screw you up really bad in this combat. So it is considered a lot of people say it's too lethal. Hit locations make combat brutal. Players feel punished by what happens to their characters. The broken legs, the broken arms. The defense. Combat is supposed to be dangerous in this game. It doesn't play it off like you're supposed to be running around fighting all the time. So the game doesn't trick you. It tells you you're not meant to be running around just carelessly getting into combat anyway. Encourages planning, caution, and role play more, right? Talk your way through it. Makes victories meaningful because it isn't easy. So when you do win, that's a big win. It's not unfair. It's grounded in what it is. Criticism number 4. No classes means no structure. Too open-ended. New players feel directionless. They don't feel like they have a direction. Hard to define roles. The defense. Freedom allows true character individuality. Culture and cults provide structure instead. So the culture you're picking, the cult you're joining, that's going to give you all your structure of who your character is to that degree, right? Without an exact label. Roles emerge naturally through play. Remember what I told you? If you're a player who's really clever at dealing with certain things, since there's no label that says you're the thief or you're the this, it comes down to what kind of player you are. And in your group, if you're good at dealing with something like this over here, you're going to be the guy stepping up, right? You're going to be taking that role because there's no label that says this is exactly who you are. This is, again, back to player skill. It's a game with skills, but ironically, player skill is the most important skill you have because there is no, this is a label, this is what you do. No, it's what does your mind allow you to think of to deal with the challenge in front of you? And if you're someone with the better mind for that one, well, that's going to be you stepping up. It replaces rigid structure with organic development. Okay. Criticism number 5. Magic is complicated and restrictive. Magic tied to cults limits freedom. Requires understanding religion and setting. Feels restrictive compared to free-form magic systems. The defense. Your powers come from belief and commitment. Reinforces identity and world logic. It's not limiting, it's contextual. Criticism number 6. Skill system can be slow or grindy. Lots of skills to track. Advancement can feel slow, right? Taken like too gradual. Repetition needed to improve. Yeah, you got to keep using skills to improve them. The defense. Progression feels earned and realistic because you got to actually do the thing to get the benefits. Right? There's no leveling up. So the only way the skill keeps improving is you keep doing it like somebody would in real life. The more you practice something, the better you get at it. That's the idea. Right? Characters grow based on what they actually do. Encourages varied play styles. You'll play more to your skills. This guy will have different skills. He'll play more to those. So it really is going to separate that, the very games, the very play styles between you. It's slower, but more personal because you got to earn it. It's not just, your skills get up because you leveled up. Again, there's no levels. It's slower, but more personal and organic, real. Criticism number 7. It's not heroic fantasy. Doesn't feel like epic power fantasy. Characters start grounded and weak, vulnerable. Less cinematic than other systems. The defense, heroism is earned, not assumed. Growth feels meaningful over time. Fits the mythic human. This is going to be a lot of people appreciate this part because a lot of people say they want to play human-centered games. This is what this is. That fits the mythic human-centered tone. It's not about starting as heroes. It's about becoming one. Very true. This is what it all comes down to. Do you want a flexible fantasy game or a mythic world that demands you take it seriously? RuneQuest doesn't hold your hand. It asks you to step into a world and take it seriously. Final takeaway from this part. People who leave RuneQuest usually want faster play, simpler systems, clear structure. People who love it want deep world building, meaningful choices, a system that respects consequence. Okay. We're to the worth mentioning part. This is because to add on to these streams, make them just a little bit longer, especially as I'm getting faster going through the stuff, right? And just cutting. You want to know what? When I would do the separation early on about the birth and the influences, I feel like I'd have to repeat certain statements too much. And I felt like that was extending some of the streams, but not in a good way. I don't want to keep repeating, so I sort of package that together. I think that's what sped up a bit of this, but this is another part. So stuff worth mentioning. Strike ranks matter more than people remember. Because these are what called common questions and stuff I just looked up just to really get details. RuneQuest doesn't just do initiative, it does strike ranks. They are influenced by weapon length, dexterity, size, action type. A spear hits before a sword. A dagger hits last, but fast in close quarters. This is one of the earliest systems that tried to model timing in combat, not just in turn order. Not just turn order, sorry. Armor absorbs damage. It doesn't make you harder to hit. So in this game, doesn't matter how good your armor is, you can have the plate armor and you're going to be hit as easily as somebody with leather. But it's the absorbing damage part that's really important. You still get hit. Armor reduces damage after the hit. This changes player psychology. You don't avoid hits. You manage damage and risk. So you're not really avoiding getting hit quite often. You're trying to reduce as much damage as you're going to take from getting hit maybe as often as you do, right? This is a defining basic role play, BRP, design choice that carried into Call of Cthulhu and other games. Hit locations are not a gimmick. No. Each body part has its own hit points. Lose an arm, can't fight properly. Lose a leg, you're down. You can lose them. You can either get it broken or have it chopped off. For real in RuneQuest. It's a pretty common occurrence. Well, not common, but common enough that I've seen it happen more than once where people lost limbs. Combat becomes situational instantly. This is why RuneQuest combat feels tense. Damage changes what you can do, not just how long you last. So even before you lose all your hit points and die, you already lost your arm. There goes your arm. That's going to change how the fight goes for you going forward. So damage in that really does, it's physical and really does affect combat right in the middle of it before you're even done. before you're even done. You're already affected in your what you can do. Criticals and specials are a huge deal. Percentile rolls aren't just pass fail, special success, critical success. These can bypass armor, do massive damage, end fights instantly. Combat is always volatile. Even a weaker character can win with the right roll. Okay. Ruin magic versus spirit magic. It's a big distinction. These are separate things. There are multiple magic systems, but the key distinction here is spirit magic is common and flexible, personal. So you're going to see spirit magic used quite often compared to, say, ruin magic. Ruin magic is powerful, tied to cults, often one use. Ruin magic isn't just stronger, it's tied to your relationship with your god, right? And it's not like cleric magic versus, like, say, wizard magic in D&D. The magic is extremely strong with ruin magic. Cults are the real classes. So there's no classes in this game, but when you're picking who your character is going to be, the cult choice is deeply important for the influence on your character and what you might do in gameplay with them, right? So you can play the way you want, but if you're going to be influenced by anything in the game to do something more specific, it's going to be the cult you choose, right? Cults are the real classes. Even though there is no classes, cults effectively act like them, provide magic, define role, give structure, ranks matter, lay member, initiate, priest, or ruin lord. Advancement is social and religious, not just mechanical. Your cult is your identity more than your skill list. So that's what it means by, it does sort of take up the idea of the class, right? Ruins are not just symbols. They are reality. Ruins represent elements, air, fire, earth, etc., concepts, truth, death, chaos, etc. They are the building blocks of existence. Characters are aligned with ruins, and that affects behavior, influences magic, shapes identity. Ruins are not flavor; they are metaphysics of the. They are the metaphysics of the setting. Sorry about that. Okay, next. Chaos is the true enemy, not just monsters. RuneQuest isn't just fight monsters. It has a strong theme: chaos versus order. Chaos represents corruption, unreality, breaking natural law. This is one of the central moral and mythic conflicts. Next, improvement roles. You don't just gain experience, you improve skills through using them successfully. That means your character becomes what they do. That really is important, as I've already explained, not what they plan to be. It doesn't matter what you want to be, it's what you do in the game will decide how you progress. This is one of the earliest and cleanest play drive progression systems that there are. There had been similar stuff since, but RuneQuest was really probably, I think, the first real one, right? Of what you do in the game is how you progress your character. RuneQuest isn't just detailed, it's systematically intentional. Every mechanic strike ranks, armor, cults, ruin is there to reinforce a world where myth, combat, and culture all matter at the same time. RuneQuest doesn't just have depth, it has a system that quietly changes how you think about playing a character. Like it's a lot, there's a lot less direction. There's a lot more freedom, but in a good way, with some direction, not with none, right? Now this is the last bit of sort of final take here. Armor absorbs damage, not hit chance. So again, armor doesn't stop you from being hit. Actually, you're probably going to get hit quite often. It's about managing the damage you're taking, less about avoiding the hits. Strike ranks actually model weapon timing. So it's another one where there's weapon speed in D&D, but this is a little bit more accurate. It tries to really get down to how your weapons work, how that really works in some simulated way in combat. So, if realistically the spear is going to be faster than the sword, well, the guy with the spear goes faster. He goes first. Cult basically replace classes, but they're still not as defined as classes. It gives you an idea. This is where I say it's just not all free form. There is some direction. It's just not a label of direction, right? It's not like for sure this is what you do in the group. That's what it's saying. It just gives you an idea of, you can aim yourself towards something like that, but it's you choosing to play the character towards a certain role rather than feeling like you're forced to play towards that role in the group, right? Rune magic is tied to your god, not just spell slots. I hope you guys like that. I hope RuneQuest sounds awesome. I hope as players you like it, because I played it before I ever ran it. I got to say, as a player, it's one of the most rewarding, hard game, but one of the most rewarding games, because it was the first game where I went really, for sure, where I met what I would consider somewhat a mediocre game master, but he was okay with this. But the system rewarded me for my effort, and I played in a few games where the DMs in D&D, I'd make the extra effort, but I pretty much get the same experience points that everybody else got. But I felt like I went above, and I went above the Call of Duty. But in this game, when I got into RuneQuest, it was like, you go above, the game completely acknowledges you going above the Call of Duty and rewards you directly for it. I mean, that should sound awesome to a player who feels like I want to be rewarded for my effort. And the body parts, like, you'll take more hits, but it's soaking up damage. You want to soak up a lot of damage with your armor. But the body parts can get hit, like your arm can get hit down to 0. This arm has hit points, this arm has hit points, this leg, and you can either get it broken, you know what I mean? And the more damage you're taking on the limbs, the more they're hurting you to the point where it goes 0 and then doesn't work. You just try not to get hit in the head down to 0. And torso is an up and down thing. Torso, you can take a lot of damage here, but for the most part, if you hit 0 with the torso, most likely did. But again, you can boom. But then you got to get your arm fixed in that. So combat can be very resource-driven, diddly. And again, combat is not just like you just keep swinging until you're 0. Oh, I guess I'm dead. No. Halfway through the fight, your arm gets lopped off on the ground. You're just like, damn. Like its combat is affecting you way before the fight is over. It is awesome. It really is. You can interact with your gods, pick your cult. And the great thing about the cult thing is it gives you an idea, but there's no, you're the thief, you're the fighter, you're the wizard. Like, none of that shit. It's the players that can really think towards something. You get rewarded for the way you want to play. And it does. Yep. Craig's right. RuneQuest does sound like something like that, but it's just a game that really just rewards you, rewards your efforts. That was the most satisfying part of RuneQuest for me, was I finally found a game where I was like, it's different, it's unique, but it just doesn't make me feel like I'm pigeonholed into one thing to play this game. And then you feel like you got to use everything you have, like the eureka of going, I use these 2 skills. It's a skill, and here's another weird thing. It's a game with a bunch of skills, but player skill is the most important. Like I played some old school D&D where player skill is all you have. So when I got into RuneQuest, I was like, God, this game has skills, but I feel like this is more player skill than anything. Because even though I have skills, it feels like that's less focus. It's more about my skill as a player. But it was deeply rewarded. And I gotta say, the where it's all physical, the damage, it's more better for the mind. Like, you can play in games where guys are just like, no, don't worry, man. You're just exhausted in the old D&D. And in this game, when you take damage, you're going to hear the game master probably say you get cut open, you got this, you got that. Like, it's going to be detailed down, right? It's going to be graphic damage. So you want to avoid a lot of fights. You want it, well, to a degree. But yeah, my first time getting this, like and we were ended a session. I'm talking to the guys running the game. I use these 3 skills. He's like, yeah, you can improve them. What about my other ones? Now, you didn't use them, dude. I wasn't mad about that. Slightly disappointed, but I was like, so what do you mean? I'd have to use them to get the reward? Yeah. I'm in. Right there. I'm in. Like, okay, that's my excuse to use, and I don't want to use them stupidly. I wanted to be clever with them, not just be dumb, right? But it was just, wow, I get to really focus on what I can do with this character, really focus. And I really get rewarded for the effort of focusing it. The more clever I use the skill, I get paid off. It's just such a rewarding thing for player skill, right? It's a rewarding thing. It's a rewarding game for that. And growing up is not that bad. It's actually fun to run because it's fun when you're really getting players that really enjoy it. Because I can tell you, when I finally found a group that really enjoyed the game, it's seeing them happy as I reward them and noticing, and that becomes an important thing to you. And you carry that back to D&D. This is why I became a better DM. I ran RuneQuest, and I really focused on what I like too, but rewarding players for what they actually do and making sure that was, and the satisfaction of players after those sessions. It was so good. It was such a high for them that when I went back to D&D, I was like, okay, I got to make sure I reward extra effort, because the more you reward extra effort, it entices people to play better. Doesn't matter what system it is. So if you're a DM running D&D and you're giving everybody the same experience, but you didn't pay attention to your guy over here who really made above him and went above the Call of Duty, and he's not getting an extra anything, like, and there's no real even like, oh, here's, don't even do it throwaway. Like, make sure you really are noticing people going above the Call of Duty, and they play better. Because I seen some DMs like this. Well, he plays pretty well, but I'm like, I said, dude, here's my warning. If you don't start focusing on acknowledging that guy's effort and rewarding it, he'll start giving up. And I've seen that happen with a lot of good players where they start not playing so hard. And I talked to them afterwards, like, man, you play really good usually. Like, what happened? That guy just doesn't reward, so I'm not really trying as hard. I mean, oh shit. Okay. Then I talked to the DM after, like, dude, start rewarding that guy. Why? Because now he's leveled out on his effort in your game. He's not making the extra effort, and that would be, and you need him to. That would benefit the group, your game, the energy, the experience. If you don't make sure to notice this guy, that's why I tell DMs, be socially aware. If you don't make an extra effort with this guy, he'll like this. He'll just go like, yeah, I'm not being rewarded, so I'll play. I'll have some fun, but I'm not making the extra effort anymore. Because players usually, when they make an extra effort, want to be acknowledged. And that could be sometimes all you need to do. I know some players out there that you don't even need to give them extra experience points. Just fucking acknowledge it, right? Put some fucking spotlight on the extra effort that guy's making, and he'll be enticed to keep doing it because it's earning something that makes him feel good. It's a payoff. It's a reward. And if he's getting no reward, like if he gets the same reward everybody else does, the same spotlight too, like the guy over there that did shit. Well, he's getting the same spotlight I do. Like, I'm not gonna fucking make an effort if that guy gets the same thing. So you give an incentive by spotlighting, or maybe giving extra experience, but especially spotlighting extra play. You give incentive because that feels good to players to want to play better in the game. And RuneQuest really teaches you how valuable the incentive is to have a game, make the game master have to socially acknowledge your extra effort. That's what RuneQuest did. You have to acknowledge the extra effort, and it feels good because that actually will get spotlighted based on being the game master of RuneQuest. And you'll see the high that your players have. And players that enjoy RuneQuest, that's why it says when players love it, they stick to it because they keep coming back for the high. And they go to other games right away. I've seen RuneQuest players go to other games. They come back and tell me like about a year later, man, when I played your RuneQuest game, man, it felt great. It's like, well, how you doing now? Not so great. I'm okay. It's okay game. What game? Like D&D. Yeah. Is the guy, are you doing extra? Well, I did for a while, but that guy doesn't even pay attention. So I fucking stopped trying. Oh. And I'm like, you don't need the extra experience points, do you? No, just, man, it'd be nice to be acknowledged. For a while, I tried my ass off, but yeah, Everybody else gets treated the same way, so I don't care. I got that. I got the spotlight feels special when you've earned it. It's an incentive to keep trying because you're being appreciated for what you've done. Shit, what a payoff. What a powerful mental thing to learn as a game master. Simple social awareness, minor spotlight onto a player who's tried harder. Like actually acknowledge it and go to your way to give a little spotlight to that. It feels good for that person. It is a boost, but they've earned it, right? So it's no faking giving it to them. That could be it, right? XP, if that's all you're getting sometimes, that you want people to feel like you really got a dry spotlight when people do extra things. Because it is an incentive, because it feels like a high. You do feel propped up. Even if you're not like the greatest player in the world, but you're there, man, and you did something special that night. Like you thought of the right answer. Man, everybody else didn't. You fucking came up with it. You're no special player, but man, it feels good that the game master noticed that. It's an incentive for your weaker players, even when they have their moments, to get it, and it feels good. It's just socially feels good. It's incentive to go, I want to feel that again. I want to, whatever I did to have that spotlight put on me, I feel, yeah, I thought of the fucking thing. So it's in the future, now they have something to go for. Now they want to think up the next thing, but now they're trying. It's a try thing. It's an effort now. Because they know if they do something special on any given night, if they got the right DM like me, Game Master, they know they're going to get their fucking reward. And it's always going to feel good. I've noticed players, when they get the right incentive, it doesn't matter. It's like watching a show. It doesn't matter. If they get it 50 times, it will feel good 50 times. That's why I tell all Game Masters, your first job is to be socially aware. Like, just one of the most basic things you can do is just be socially aware so people know that you care and you give a fuck. And actually, I say to most game masters when I meet new game masters and they ask me for advice, what's the basic thing I can do? Is I'm like, if you're not listening and you miss what people say, they're not playing the game or they're unable to play the game right. You'd be like, I sort of get what you mean, Steven, but like, what do you mean? Like, well, dude, nothing is real until you've heard it and you acknowledge it in the game. So if I say my character goes over here, I can say it out loud, but if you didn't listen, my character is not went over there. I have to then say it again to you. My character went over here. Until the game master acknowledges that minor detail, I can't play the game. So I tell players, get on game masters to listen. I tell game masters, if you're not socially aware, that seat's not for you. Either you improve in that area or get up and give the seat to somebody who is going to be socially aware. If you just, I see that with, that's why I get after guys that were like, I can run 8 players. I'm like, no, you can't. Right? I'll watch them DM and they'll be like, yeah, I can. I'm like, mm-mm. But I do, Steven. I have 8 players. We have a game. It goes well. I'm like, you probably missed 20% of what was said in every session I've seen you run. So if you're running the game, that means you don't miss the 20%. Basically, and I don't know how many nights the player would have mentioned something. He thinks the DM has noticed. He finally goes to say, I do this. And, oh, no, you didn't cross over there. I said it earlier. But it's consistent with some guys. So I'm like, at that point, if almost every night you're running for like a bunch of people and you're missing 20%, that means you can't game master that many people. You can only game master who you can hear, who you can be socially aware. And so I'm a realist. I can do more people, but then I overwork myself listening because I realize if I miss 10% of what you said, I failed. Any night I miss 10% of what's said, that means I failed as a game master. Because you don't play the game unless I acknowledge your words. I'm your joystick. Like, that's how you move your character. That's how you say the stuff. Until I acknowledge something, that thing hasn't happened. So I don't know how many guys in life where I'll be like, they got like, I run for 10 people. I'm like, no, you can run for about 6, but you have 10 people at your table. They're like, well, what do you? No. I'm like, no, dude. No, dude. You can take in what 6 people can give to you in one night. You fail to take in what 10 people give you. So what you're doing is having 10 people and failing every night you're doing 10 people. I seen it. I went to the HowCon only a few times, but I watched there 2 people fail just miserably. And players not even notice it, because here's what saddens me is to meet players that don't know the game master is failing. They don't know. They've been in bigger games where they're like, I'm like, dude, if you understood what you were saying, if you had a better standard understanding, if you had better game masters you encountered before this, you would know the guy you think is doing well is not doing that well. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, you got a game master with like say 6 or 8 people, and he misses like say 5 to 10% almost every night. Yeah, well, he's failing. They're like, oh, he is? I'm like, dude, how can you play the game if he's not taking in what you say? So I tell game masters, if you want to be a successful GM of any system or storyteller, whatever you want to call yourself, never take on more players than you can socially take in, like you can be aware of. I personally nowadays prefer 5. Right? As I get older, it's harder to fucking be all over the place. And I can run it in a way most people would think is successful. That's the problem. Most people think bad game mastering is good. That's my opinion. A lot of people think bad game mastering is good because they don't even know what bad game mastering is. Like I don't know how many game masters I've talked to in private afterwards. Like, dude, they think you did fucking great. It's like, yeah. I'm like, you missed about 20% of what they said. He'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, you having a shitty night, dude. You failed. Right? Right? He failed. He failed because he took on more players than he could. That's why he failed. That's why 20% of what was said was missed. But that means it hurts everyone. You're not just failing before. It means everybody, a percentage of what they're saying is not being taken in. And now he can pretend his way through it, or players with lower standards that don't know that it can be done better will be okay with that. They'll actually say it's really good game mastering too. That saddens me when I see players. I'm like, because I have higher standards. I just do. So when I see guys like, that's great game mastering, I'm like, dude, I have very high standards. So if I had that night, I'd be shitty with myself afterwards. It's like, shouldn't agree date fucking people. Fucking, I sucked. I'd be saying that to the guys. Yeah, I missed 10% of what you said. I completely flopped tonight. Sorry. I would admit it to players right to their face. I wouldn't even hide it. I'm just real like that. But that's my standard. Now, a lot of people in the hobby don't have my standard. So here, see, I can sound too judgmental when I talk like that because but I see guys where I feel bad. They'll be running for like maybe 4 or 5 people, and they socially miss a percentage of what's said. I'm like, oh, dude, did you miss like 5% of what was said tonight? Yeah. You only got 5 people. How the fuck did you miss that? And I'm like, I'm trying not to be an asshole, but I can't I have to hold my language back because I realize if I say this stuff to people, they'll all think I'm really, really mean. I'm like, look, I don't care if you enjoy that game mastering. I don't care if that game master, and if you all had fun, that's fine. It's how I judge myself. So these are standards I put on me. I don't care, however, like you look at the gaming however you want, but it's just me. You got to be able to hear what your players are saying. Simple. You got to be socially aware of players. Simple as that. Don't take on more than you can actually run the game for. That's what I tell people. That's when they want my advice. Don't take on more than you can actually handle. Don't pretend to. And most HowCon team were guys that just could not handle the amount of players that showed up. That was it. I mean, I thought Frank was, here's why I think Frank Metzner, people didn't appreciate why he was so good. People are like, why did Frank Metzner win all these awards? There's other guys that run just as good as him. I'm like, no, they don't. They're like, what do you mean? No, come on, Steven, prove it. I'm like, Frank could have 12 people at the table and he would know everything he said. That's what made Frank amazing. People don't appreciate why Frank Metzner won the best DM awards back in like the the 80s, because he was one of the fucking best on the scene. The guy could have 12 people at his table and know everything that was said, start to finish. And I'd be like, because I would watch other people try that and they just couldn't do that. I couldn't do 12 people. Frank could. Frank was fucking a miracle worker. I was like, Frank could pay attention to 12 players. The guy in the back could do something unique. Frank would know it, know what you said, and be able to acknowledge it. I'd be like, shit, dude, that guy's amazing. No wonder Frank won the awards. People don't appreciate, like, it's almost throwaway for Frank Metzner, but I remember him getting multiple awards. Here's what you got to do. If you know your weakness, pay more attention. Take notes. See, there's what you can do, and then there's artificial ways of improving yourself. Okay, I don't always take in what everybody's saying. First, acknowledge it. Okay, tell your players. I'll react when I'm hearing stuff. If I don't react, tell me again. That's a way to overcome your flaw. And you're a good game master if you do that and make sure you've heard everything. That's good game master. That takes up the problem. I can take 5 people now. You're doing 3 to 4. I can take about 5. I go to 6. But see, I'm being honest. I'm not saying I'm some great fucking guy that can get out and run 12 or fucking 8. So I'm the first one to be cruelly honest about myself before I judge anyone else. Right? I can take 5. Can't do 6 is start where I start flaking like, okay, if I got more than 5, I tell people, pay attention. You're an individual player. It's not your job to pay attention to the other players. You're paying attention to me when you're talking. Okay, that's important. If I do not socially acknowledge what you said, Steven, oh, yeah? This is what I'm doing. Okay, cool. You'll never hear me get mad. I'm like, once I get over 5, I just want people, boom. Yeah, it's not about it. It really is. It's a slight interruption, but it is getting at you. You want to, because you don't want to miss stuff. Because that's the interrupting part. Is later your players like, well, can I do this? And you're like, well, you didn't fucking move over there. I did, dude. You just missed it. So I just tell my players, look for the social cues. You know me, and my players do know me. Even new players, just look for social cues. If I don't visually acknowledge, if I don't react to what you said, say it again. Right? Even with 5 players, my 5 players know what to give. And I could have a bad night where one of my players is like, Steven, what, dude? I'm going to move over my character over here. And I'm like, yeah, cool. All right, you can do that. And they'll be like, oh, so you did miss it the first time. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I'm not perfect. So I'm not, standard might be high for me, but I'm not hating on other people. Standard's high, but I'm a realist. I'm not perfect. So I tell my players, even with 5, dude, look for my social acknowledgement. That's why I was so impressed with Frank Metzner. That's why he won the awards. Frank could have 12 people. Not fucking, only guy I've ever seen in my life do this, where 12 people could be at the table and the guy in the back would say something. Frank would look over, yep. And if you knew what I knew as an experienced game master, you would know, like a lot of people wouldn't know how good that was when he would do that. Even the players there wouldn't get how good that was. I'm like, that guy has 12 people at the table and he acknowledges everybody saying everything. And he doesn't miss you. No wonder Frank Metzner won fucking awards as the best dungeon master around. Again, I have not seen a convention guy that can do it, though I see convention guys with like 10 people there. I'm like, dude, if you miss 10 or 20% of what people say and you still don't acknowledge it later, if it's not fixed, you had a bad night. So you just want the game to go well. It's all, again, how do players play the game? Through the game master. Simple as that. So that's why I tell my players, you're playing it through me. Now, when you interact with each other, also, but it's a good call because I'll see other players miss, like they'll be talking to each other in character. some guy says something to the other character, the player doesn't give the social acknowledgement that he's heard it. But since they're so used to dealing with me to make sure I socially acknowledge what they say, and they know to speak up again because I tell them to, they'll do it with the other players. So that can even help make sure the characters are well communicated between each other, right? It's like, hey, dude, yeah. Oh, what do you think of this? Because if you say something, if you're talking to another player in character and he doesn't respond, he's not being rude. He probably didn't hear you. So or he probably didn't take you in. And that could be because of immersion too. I warn people. It's not always that you suck that you're missing people, but you do suck if you don't solve the issue. The issue is you're immersed in the moment. You're talking to this other character. You're thinking of what to do. And there's another player talking to you with his character on the side, but he's not getting a social reaction from you. It's because you're so immersed. You're missing that. You're immersed in this other thing. As a game master, you can get immersed in different parts of what's going on. Oh, these two characters are doing this. Yeah. The other player speaks up. You're just immersed. It's the poke on the shoulder thing. Oh, yeah. Again, if your players aren't in that relationship with you, that's why I say a game master, I've said this a million times, a game master is only as good as the people he plays the game with. So if your players know to look for social acknowledgement from you, and when they don't get it, they speak up. They say the thing again. They make sure they get the reaction. That means they're always safe, that they're not going to be ignored. And a lot of players feel like they're ignored. You'll see players playing privately. They say nothing to the group. Like, yeah, my game master, like, I don't like it. I don't like that he ignores me sometimes. I'm like, dude, most likely he's not ignoring you. Think of it in a different way. He missed what you said. When you think of it that way, you realize your game master probably has no issue with you at all. You're not just second rate to him. It's just he's immersed in a moment and you spoke up. If he's immersed in your thing, he could miss what another player says, right? So it's all about focus, attention, and understand you're all working as a team. The game master's no good if you don't work with them. That's when they miss the stuff. That's when you have a bad night. That's it. I think this is really good advice, but some people will feel very judged by what I said earlier. I totally get it. You're trying to run for 8 people. If you can't pay attention to 8 people, the only way for that to work, and it can work, but then everybody in that 8 group should see, if the game master doesn't have this talk and the players don't think about it this way, this is where you get fucked up. Game master with more than 5 people, I think you should have the social talk right away. Guys, if I don't socially react to you, I'm not ignoring you. Use words like that so they know it's not out of ignorance. You're not trying to ignore them. But if I don't socially react to your words, repeat. Get my attention. And let your players know. I always tell my players, I'm not here to ignore any of you. I don't play favorites. I might be immersed on what this character's doing over here or these 2 characters, but it's not because I like them more than you. Right? It's just I'm trying to give all the energy in the right places where I need to. If you got something to say, don't feel like you're in the back. So let your players know you would never ignore them on purpose. And if you got more than you can handle, just make sure it's all, hey guys, we're a team. This game goes as well as you working with me. But I just seen so many cons where it's like almost 100% of the tables are DMs that are missing 10 to 20%. I'm like, no, there's a bunch of bad game master. But I just have a high standard. Shit, there's a lot, and a lot of players have problems socially focusing too. So that's its own issue right there. You know, again, that's where I say players need to focus. Not focus, but you need to sometimes repeat to another player because it just, you can get caught up in the stuff. That's why some players are not meant for the game mastering seat to begin with. Insult towards them, but I'm like, dude, I think you're a fine player, but you would never be able to handle the seat. And they're like, why? I'm like, you can barely pay attention to the other 3 players playing or the other 4 players playing the game. You just no, right? Most likely, you should stay in that seat. So you get a lot of players that don't care about that, so they're fine just playing and not game mastering stuff. Some players can take that off, but I can't help it, guys. It's a high standard for myself. So, Dungeons and Dragons, Beck me. Beck me. And he worked on it towards, a lot of his work went to the AD&D stuff later. He's part of basically testing. We're all game testers, but it's like running. He ran original because he did original testing to get to Beck me. Beck me was his preferred game most of the time, though I know he's ran other games. I just never checked what he ran at the con. Whenever I seen con footage of him, it would just blow my mind. And I seen him at a con where I met him and Gary. And that one con I seen them. I never played the game because I was doing other things, but I was like just watching him with like 12 players there. And it'd be like a guy in the back would say something. And Frank would completely hear it, word for word, acknowledge the whole thing, and nobody had to poke him. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? I was like, no wonder he's. Sorry, my cat wants it. But I was like, no, like this guy is ultimately, and he was given awards, the best DM. But I'm like, do people appreciate how fucking hard that is to be able to pay attention to 12 people almost at once? That's what made him a miracle worker. You could say anything and he would not miss it. Now, maybe later, as he got older, that changed. But in his hot times when he was winning DM awards, there was a reason. I never seen another DM ever run over like 8 people and run it well, right? Like run it actually well. I thought Tim Cass did all right in some of the footage I seen him. Gary, I don't know. I seen him, some of his footage. Hardcore guy. Never really seen how great he was. Seen some of his gaming. It's Frank where I get to see in person and real footage of him. And he won those awards. And I was like, I could never do that with 12 people. I'd miss it for sure. Even at what I call my peak, right? When I run at big tables, right? I was like, there's no way. I could do what Frank did. Frank was special. One of the best DMs I've ever seen in my fucking life. And it's only because of that, because he was socially aware and could hear everyone. And he could hear, like, we're in a room when he does the 12 people, there's noise, man. Like, shit's blowing up, things are banging, people are talking. And he has 12 people in front of him, and he hears everybody and exactly what they're saying. I'm like, this guy can filter out his table. Like, all noise turns off like mute. Completely hears his players. Right? And that's what made Frank special. I never seen another game master even. Like, I don't care, World of Darkness, whatever. Nobody has ever lived up to Frank Metzner. There's a reason why his name was popular. It's not just because he worked on D&D. He became popular winning all these best DM awards. I'm like, yeah, because he fucking was. It was definitely inspiration for me. And it was learning from him that I realized how valuable it was to listen to people. I even asked him, like, because I got to talk to him and Garrett, but I asked him, hey, man, how are you able to, like, know what everybody said? He's like, I turn off everything and focus on my players. And then he says, I'm honest with myself. I'm like, okay. And he knows how to scan and look for actions and words. Oh, yeah, Craig, where you live in the UK and stuff. Yeah, Frank in the West. I've never heard of another guy in another nation either. I'm not trying to insult anyone. Probably lots of fucking great DMs in that in the UK. Have no doubt at all. Frank was just, I asked him, like, how do you do that? And I found out from him. He's the one who really got this in my head. That if you can't hear your players, they're not playing the game. He's the one who told me this. If you go through digging through some of his comments on Dragon's, but you'll hear him say the same thing. Or you'll read him saying the same thing. Right? Because if you're socially unaware of what players are saying, they're not playing your game. That was his standard. And he was good enough to have a high standard. Like, he was an amazing guy. So I was like, but he was also attitude driven. Like I said this, and the way I do YouTube, if Gary and Frank did YouTube today, everyone would probably hate their guts. I mean, everyone in the old school. Because I'm just like Gary and Frank. So I'm like, for the guys that don't like me, I'm like, if you don't like me, be lucky Gary and Frank are a myth to you. Just be lucky Gary and Frank are like a myth. Actually, Frank was a little public, and he got heat for it because people found out it was like. But I'm like, if Gary would have done YouTube, if you only met Gary Gygax for YouTube, people would shit on him because here's one thing: Gary didn't put up with shit from people. And you know me, you guys all know me. Now I don't do the drama now, but I had this attitude of I'll speak back because I don't put up with shit from people. Gary would speak back. So if Gary was doing YouTube and you said some shit about him, watch out. Especially if he's doing a stream, he verbally shit all over your head. So with Frank actually did do some of that shit over your head shit. And he got some heat for it. So I'm like, I don't get, like I see the old school guys around here and I'm like, okay, you can hate me, but that means you would hate Gary and Frank. They're nothing like you guys. They're like me. They're like Condor DM. Gary and Frank are way more like Condor DM. I'm an old school, not put up with shit, attitude, old school DM, TSR. I'm like exactly. And these guys are guys that really made me who I am personality-wise coming into the hobby. I'm really lifted up by Gary, mainly by Frank. But if they were both YouTubers, go ahead, do some under sliding words to these guys. They come right out and say your name and shit all over you. And be a guy with 10K subs and go fucking talk to Gary or Frank that way. They come back, they do videos, they wouldn't give a fuck. They put up their short videos. Yeah, he can go fuck himself, blah, blah. I don't care if he got 10K, he can suck my dick. Like, they talk like that for real. And they would. They had those kinds of attitudes. Especially Frank. Jesus, fuck. Yes, he would. Frank got more heat than Gary did. And Frank was doing some of the video stuff. He actually did do some, what people don't realize if you really dig back, I just don't know what channels. But he did some early streaming shit. And he'd shit all over people in the streams. And he got a lot of shit, even on Dragon's Foot. On Dragon's Foot, some of the Dragon's Foot guys were going, we don't want Frank here. I'm not getting, see, people forget the history here, but I've been around forever. I remember when people were getting mad at Frank, even going near Dragon's Foot, because Frank talked some shit. A lot of people were mad at Frank. They forget the history here. Go dig up on it, go find it. I'm not lying. I'm not making shit up. People are all mad at Frank because Frank would go on streams like, oh, these people can go fuck themselves. He can go fuck himself. That guy can go fuck himself. Want to say some underline. And if you hinted towards Frank insultingly, like, oh, was that guy talking shit about me? Frank would come straight up, say your name, and fucking shit all over your head. That's it. Imagine how the guys blow up today on me. I'm like, well, if you hate Condor DM, you would have hated Gary Gygax, and you would have hated Frank Metzner. You would have hated the two of them as YouTubers. So be lucky for a lot of you that they're mythical people, because you wouldn't like them. Gary especially. Gary was more professional than Frank. He could, but overall he was nicer. Like, he was a nicer guy compared to Frank and Gary. Like, Tim Cast is like he can handle players. But imagine, like, if Tim Cast is considered a bit of a straight talker, not put up with shit guy, but I'm like, imagine how high quality shit talkers these guys were when Tim Cast is the nice guy of the group. Now, people know Tim, when he was alive, could talk some shit and wouldn't put up with your crap. But imagine if Tim is considered the nice guy and he's already harsh enough. And you got Tim and it's like, I'm like, the guys that hate me right now, they all would not get along with Frank and Gary. Gary and Frank would shit on all of them. Every guy that fucking hates my guts, Frank wouldn't like. I guarantee it. I guarantee Frank would not like these guys. None of them. I mean, none of them. None of them. Frank wouldn't like any of them. I'm almost guaranteed Gary wouldn't like any of them. But guess what? I almost guarantee this. Frank and Gary would like me. Because I'm more like Frank and Gary than the rest of these guys are. That's why I made that video where I said, if Gary was a fucking YouTuber, you'd all hate his fucking guts, because the proof's in the pudding. I'm like Gary and Frank, and you hate my guts. So, I want to tell you, I'm an old school, real strict old school DM. And I talk with attitude and not putting up with shit. But that's commonplace. That's commonplace. Now, why were Frank and Gary like that? Because that's how, see, we're all nice to each other. Now, as a content creator, I'm a nicer guy, right? But as a DM world, when you're a DM in nerd world, you don't put up with, you fucking jump down people. You fucking deal with people. If nerds blow your fucking table up if you don't. Go try to be a rule lawyer in Gary's game. Tell Gary Gygax he's doing something wrong. Yeah, see how that goes for you when he was alive. Wouldn't go well. Go tell Frank he's doing something wrong when he's running the game. Because these guys would know they're not. So if they have the authority, just a nice guy. Very nice guy compared to Frank and Gary. But still wouldn't put up with your shit. Old school minds are like, Jim is not a push around guy. But are they as harsh as Gary and Frank? No. But that's where my mentors outside of my own DM were Gary and Frank Metzner. Gary Gygax and Frank Metzner. I'm exactly like them as a DM and dealing with nerds. And you had to be, if not, nerds would blow your game up. Certain nerds. That's why Gary and Frank just were cold, hard sons of bitches. They just wouldn't put up with your shit. You know, DM is king. That's what Gary himself said. But what does that mean? That means, hey, player, you're a fucking peasant. Be lucky you're playing the game. Be lucky I worked on the game for you. But don't you fucking talk with any. And he did, like, Gary and Frank learned really quick. Nerds, and they learned this from the wargaming. Nerds can be socially unaware of how rude they are. So Gary and Frank are socially aware of you don't talk certain shit to people, right? So imagine you're running for a nerd, and he's going to say something to you that you know in the real world, that guy would get him, everybody would punch that guy the fuck out. Like, you don't say that around normal fucking people and not have somebody slap you in the fucking mouth for it, right? But these guys would show up at your table and speak to you in a way that should get them popped. So Gary and them wouldn't pop you. He's not going to fucking punch you every time you say some shit. But did he have the straight hardcore authority to shut you the fuck up? Frank could shut you the fuck up at the table. Try to rule lawyer in his game. He'd shut you the fuck up. Try to rule lawyer in Gary's game. The DM is king. He'd shut you the fuck up. And they just didn't care about all the pick apart arguments nerds had. So you could try to pick it apart like, yeah, well, I think it's yeah, shut the fuck up. I don't care. That's Gary's attitude too. So is Frank's. You go ahead and try to do a pick apart nerd thing. Pick apart. Well, I think you should actually shut your fucking mouth. I don't want to hear it. Go. They cut you the fuck off and leave you out the fuck away. You just be like saying there, like, but I have a reason why you're. Yeah, nobody gives a fuck. Neither do I. That's why Gary and Frank were, and they knew they had to be that way with nerds because they were simply right to cut you off and not put up with your shit to make the game work. They knew that was right. So once you understand basic truths, and you have to as a DM back in the old school, you just no longer care about a nerd trying to give you the big fucking page reason why you're fucking wrong about what you're doing. You're just like, yeah, no, you're not manipulating me. I don't want to hear your word salad bullshit. Go fuck yourself. This is how it is. They knew basic truths, and they would tell nerds the way it was. That's how it was. Go study history on Gary and Frank. They were just guys that just wouldn't put up with your shit. And that's why when they were building the game, everybody would have to go to Gary. So imagine him dealing with the nerds at the TSR staff. Whoa, what about this? No. And then when he would let you argue, you had to learn. Like Tim Kask was a guy who was a straight talker. That's why he had more influence, right? Because he could talk in a way where he understood who he was talking to. Like, if I go up and give word salad games to fucking Gary about why he's wrong, Gary's going to tell me to get the fuck out of the room. And then whatever I want, I can't get into the game. So Tim learned real quick, okay, I can't be insulting. I can't give word salad bullshit. Because even if I think I'm right, I'm going to get thrown out of the fucking room and Gary ain't going to listen to me. So I better say this right. Because Gary is boss. Right? And if I want something in the game, I have to understand Gary and not play this nerd game with him. Because Gary was like I'm not putting up with your shit type of guy. Whoa, get the fuck out of the room. Okay. And he'd kick you the fuck out if you were nerd salading bullshit on him. No way. Ain't putting up with it. He knew basic truths. And for a game to get to the market and for things to happen, you can't get stuck in this big word salad debate. If not, it would take you forever to get anything done and get anything out the door. He could not do that. And Gary understood that. You cannot sit there and get lost in a word salad bullshit nerd game. You can't. If you do, things don't happen. So he understood that as a DM in the game. He understood that as the person getting D&D out there. You cannot get stuck in this shit. So once he just makes this is simple truth. But no buts. Get the fuck out of the room if you got a butt. Either you accept the obvious truth. If you give me this word salad shit, you're out of the fucking door. Get out. And that's why shit got done. That's why D&D got stuff out. That's why D&D got to the market. Because Gary made shit happen. And he want to know how he became harsh? Wargaming. See, you go back to wargaming. This is wargaming guys that listen to this will appreciate this. Maybe even you, Craig. I don't know how it is in the UK, but wargaming guys get this. You can't, if you get into these word salad nerd things, the war game would never end. And imagine going through 1 million of these experiences to finally learn where every fucking person playing wargaming is like, yeah, okay, if we get stuck in this, we're fucking dead. Our game is dead. Everything we're doing is dead. So they would learn right away. And that's where Gary picks up on this. To get things done, you got to get the bullshit out of the way, understand plain truth. And it's like he doesn't care. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. At the end of it, will we come back to this? Yeah, then shut the fuck up and get out of here. If at the end, the plain thing that worked was this, well, if it works, I don't want to, well, this is why we shouldn't use it, blah, blah, blah. Does it work? Well, it does work when we're actually playing the game. Well, then what the fuck are you talking? Get the fuck out of the goddamn room and stop wasting my time. That's the way Gary would be in wargaming. And he brought that mindset to making TTRPGs and becoming a DM. I understand basic truth. What about this? No, shut the fuck up. Go. If you got something, and that's where Tim Kask had to learn how to go, okay, don't waste his time. Even if I disagree with why he got to this, just acknowledge he's right. You get what I'm saying? Great, any fellow nerds has seen this shit go down. I'm not saying anything everybody hasn't already experienced themselves. It's just, Gary was the type of like, look, I'll tell you why I think this. Well, I think you're wrong. All right, dude, wait, before you go another word. At the end of it, are you going to simply say that even though you disagree, this works? Yeah. I don't got time. So how about this? How about you shut your fucking mouth? And if I say, this is what we're doing, and you know it works, it doesn't matter the words I use. Don't get stuck on them. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? We're both coming to this works, right? Yeah. Then shut your fucking mouth about it. Unless you can tell me this doesn't work and we should change it, and you got an alternative. If you don't have an answer, and he would even tell, if you don't have an answer, don't tell me how this doesn't work, because we're trying to figure out what does. That's how shit gets done. It's like we need something that works. Well, we got this and it sort of works. Yeah, but it sort of works. So this is blah, 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 blah. All right. At the end of your speech, do you have an idea for what works? No. Well, then we need the word. We need to use the thing that sort of works. So shut your fucking mouth until you got an idea. And so he just learned to not waste time, because wasting time gets nothing done. All these meaningless fucking talks mean nothing. It's get shit done. If we have something that, at least for now, somewhat works, we use that until we have a thing that works better. Or we think of ways to improve that, but that better be what you're saying. And imagine, I've heard stories about guys getting cursed the fuck out for telling, sort of deceiving Gary. He'd be like, all right, before you go on, you sort of get an idea for how that can work better? Well, yeah. And then he'd let them, all right. And they'd be there for fucking 25 minutes. At the end of it, he's like, okay, guy, all right, here, like, just shut the fuck up. What makes this work better? Well, I'm not really sure. You mean I just stayed here for 25 fucking minutes with you wasting my fucking time? You don't know, well, I think it's good to talk. I don't got fucking time to talk. Talk time is money, motherfucker. I don't got 25 minutes to sit here and have this fucking nerd debate with you. Get the fuck out of the goddamn room. That's how he would deal with them. That's how I deal with them. Like, if I'm DMing and I'm doing something that you don't get a better answer for, I just don't burn 20. I got 25 minutes is time in life for me. Time is money. If I'm giving you time, don't waste it. I don't care what your excuse is. You're fucking retired. You're this or that. You got all kinds of time to waste. I don't. Right? So it's get to the fucking point. That's how I am in life, right? That's how I am as a game master too. Don't fucking burn my time away like it's something you can throw away casually. I don't give a fuck about all this shit. To me, it's always the end thing. Is this true? That's why when I do videos or I make a strong point that I know is true in the video, I'll make a very good point. And I'll go read in the comment section. I'm getting ready to have a good conversation with some people, right? I'm like, And I'll see this comment where I'm like, okay, so basically you have no answer. At the end, you're not exactly saying that I'm wrong, but you picked apart the thing I said to the point you dismiss it, even though it's right. Well, yeah, you're right, but you're dismissing it, right? Yeah, but you acknowledge it's right? Well, yeah, like, then how beneficial is your dialogue on the topic? You're dismissing the correct answer? Yeah, but not really. But isn't that what your comment's doing? Yeah. Do you think I want to read a page of your fucking text for nothing? Well, no. I don't want to read your page of your fucking text on the comment for no goddamn reason. Look, I love the people that give me the time. But I'm like, if you want me to appreciate your time, appreciate mine. It's a respect thing, right? And dismissive comments, like I get so tired of that. It's like, hey, this is a pretty good point, right? Pretty good point for everybody to learn. Imagine when you can't get people to learn a basic truth. You're talking to nerds, and you can't even communicate a basic truth. By the end of it, you'll have to repeat it again because they've all sort of dismissed it, but they didn't mean to because it's a basic truth. But now they're all like, later on, you could have the conversation again. Remember that thing I mentioned that should have been strong and powerful and made a point? Yeah, but you guys all fucking talked around it like assholes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for not taking a fucking beautiful point and understanding how powerfully true that thing is. That should be something we should be teaching people, but you can't because you're all fucking down here dismissing it. God damn. It's like, here's another thing. The thing I'll say about that one receipt thing, this is what bothers me the most about the receipt thing. It's an image. I don't care if you believe I did something bad or not. That's I can't stop you from believing I did something bad. But here's what bothers me about the image. It's not an actual receipt, it's an image. So what's the decent thing to do, given how damaging it could be if you're a fucking decent human being? You have an image, not a real receipt. You come talk to me in private. Hey, Stephen, got this image. Don't get a real receipt. This is the claim. Okay, then give me a chance to respond to it. Because it can be crippling as a YouTuber. So I expect adults to be fucking adults about things instead of coming at me like a 9-year-old kid. We got an image of a receipt. We're going to say you did it. We believe it because we're fucking stupid jackasses. You believe an image? You don't even have a real receipt. You believe the image? How stupid are you? The image could be fake. Yeah. Then, dude, what's the mature adult thing to do? Come to me in private and say, I got an image. You don't get a real receipt. You got an image of a receipt. Right? It's like, dude, talk to me in private. This could be damaging as a YouTuber. Imagine what this tells to any other guy who would make a YouTube video here, start a YouTube channel, And what if a bunch of people don't agree with him on it's just a gaming opinion? They're like, well, yeah, we don't like this guy. And next thing you know, there's some asshole that hates him, like just a common hater. And here's what a guy did. Like, say I could do this to you. Imagine if I made up another account for Discord, right? And I just decided to act like I'm somebody other YouTuber. I just make up a fake image, go into a group and go, look, man, I got charged by whatever YouTuber. And here's the image of the receipt. I could just, if they're really this stupid, it means I could just casually go fuck with people all day and destroy them on YouTube. All right. Good night there, Black Rose. Love you. Thank you for staying for the stream. RuneQuest was awesome. Little energy talk at the end here. I got 5 minutes before 2 hours. That's what I'm killing. But thank you. Good stream it was. It was exciting. That's my only problem with the image. I don't even care if you think I did it. It's just, dude, it's an image, not a receipt. At least be decent enough to talk to me in private about it. Yes. Thursday, we're doing the role play thing, Black Rose. If you got time. And that's going to be a good one. I'll do a little more pitching on that tomorrow, but it's going to be a good one. There's a reason I'm doing it. It's not throwaway. It's not. That was my only problem with. I didn't even care that people believed about the receipt thing. I'm like, look, I get it. If you don't like me, you can believe it. It's fine. I can't stop you from that, and that's your right to believe whatever you want. I'm not trying to control anybody and how they think. I'm like, but it's an image. It's not a real receipt. At least talk to me in private about it. Especially if you're supposedly a VIP of places, you're a well-respected guy by many, you're a big YouTuber, you got a fucking image, not a real receipt. If you're a real man, you come talk to me in private. If you're a fucking dillhole piece of trash, you act like an image represents a real receipt. All right, night there, Black Horse. Love you. Talk to you soon. That's my only issue. I have no problem with people thinking I'm guilty on that. It's just like, hey, at least talk to me in private about it. It's obviously if you're using an image and that means you're purposely trying to destroy me. That means there's something else behind what you're doing. It's not that you just think I'm guilty. You hated me before you ever seen the image, and the image just and of course, what happened to some of these guys? One guy was averaging 13 viewers per stream. As soon as he does the attack, he's back up to 30 and 40 viewers, 30 likes. But look at the timing. Averaging 13 viewers, doesn't get that many likes, having a hard time on YouTube. Creates heat with an image, not a real receipt. Gets a bunch of people riled up, and now his numbers are slightly back up. I'm like, how desperate are you for attention, dude? That's obvious. That's an immature attack on me. Not going to hang on that all night, though. Just bothersome. That's my one bothersome thing. I wish they would have came and talked to me in private. I would have. If somebody got on and said, here's this thing from about a YouTuber, he charged somebody I'd be like, well, dude, I'm going to go talk to this guy in private because I know if I put this out in public, it's very damaging to make this accusation. And I only got an image. I don't got a real receipt. So, unless I hate the guy, then that would mean I have a different intention. It doesn't matter that the guy might have done it or not. I'm actually looking to hurt him. So that means there's something more behind the accusation than just you think I'm guilty. It means you hated me for basic opinions I have. And this is you trying to destroy me. It's character assassination, reputation destruction. Sad. It's even sad. There's a YouTuber. I bought his game. And I think he bought into all this shit. I bought his game. I supported him. Really nice. Found out he muted me. I'm pretty sure it's over this bullshit. I'm like, oh, dude, really? Oh, whatever. It's a loss. I take it and move on. But anyway, there you go. And I did a good video today about the dungeons. It was respectful towards Glenn, but it's a good take on dungeons because everyone says, well, old school dungeons are unrealistic. I'm like, not really if you examine them, they're not. And they match the real world more than you think. And so if you watch my recent video and just hear how I look at old school D&D dungeons and compare them to the real world, and you'll realize, oh, wow, that's actually pretty realistic. I'm like, yeah, because it's simulation, right? And we're there. I would call that 2 hours. Okay. I love y'all. I'll talk to you soon. I'll definitely have a video tomorrow. Good night there, Craig. Good night, Monkey.